Now this is hens and chicks. It's a kind of favorite garden type variety. Now this is actually in a 4-inch pot. I don't know why we use that photograph because we have lots of hens and chicks on Ecoroofs. And then this is one that's growing, I'm not sure where. But these are really, they grow pretty slow. So if you plant these, you might use them more as an accent or something like that, or you might plant them very dense because they take quite a while to grow. And they grow pretty easily. You can just break one of these off. This little guy right here, you can break it off and just leave it lay on the ground and it will root and usually will root and grow. And then another shot, the next one. This is an interesting one. This is up on the Hamilton building, and here's that hens and chicks right here that's amongst this ice plant. Now, one of the things we did on this photo is that actually on the left here, you see the purple flower, that's the cooperi, and this sort of red-orange flower is actually a different succulent, and it's not typical ice plant. It's called Malifora, and there are many varieties of Malifora. And on the Hamilton building, this is on the west side, the Malifora that was planted in January of 2004, we had a pretty deep freeze. Do you remember that, January 2004? I do, because this stuff froze and died. So that's the point. So where it was near an air vent, we're going to talk about air vents and the negative characteristics of an air vent, but this air vent actually kept this guy alive all through that because the building is constantly venting. The air in the building is 68 degrees, so all these vent caps on the top of buildings are little microclimates, and this particular species that's sensitive to those lower temperatures survived. And we found that this plant, cooperi, is doing really well in a number of locations. And I had a conversation with a professor at Portland State, and it was very interesting because he's a plant expert, and he was talking about, it's just fascinating to talk to people that really know about plants. He was talking about how, for me anyway, he was talking about how this plant actually makes a decision as to how it's going to function based on the conditions that it finds itself in. So it's either going to be like a sedum, like a cam plant that has something to do with how it photosynthesizes, or it's going to be like another type of plant and it photosynthesizes differently. So that doesn't help with you designing or working on a project, but I thought it was a very interesting little piece of information about how adaptable this plant is. Now this is from South Africa, and actually I think the Malifora is from some climate like that as well. Yeah.
In my experience, ice plant has been kind of like an invasive species. I was wondering,
this particular one?
I don't know if it's that particular species, but it was, like I used to work in the headlands in Marin County, and we were doing a lot of ice plant removal because it was...
Marin County, California?
California, yeah.
Where's that? Central?
By San Francisco.
San Francisco, yeah. Yeah, in California, especially south, down into Southern California, there are a number of Delosperma, or actually this type of succulent, it may be Malifora as well, or other species that are considered to be invasive plants in that climate. Yeah. And this one in a garden, I have this in my garden, and it doesn't take much, and it grows very, in some locations it grows quite a bit. So on an Ecoroof though, is that bad?
Well, would it be out-competing, let's say that's hens and chicks right there?
Pardon me?
Would it be like out-competing the Sempervirus?
Well, that's part of the idea on an Ecoroof is that, the plant's ability to adapt to different circumstances. So if you plant, for instance, both of these were planted, actually this was planted, and somebody donated these hens and chicks. They came in one day and they said, "Oh, I just love that. We have tours up on the Hamilton building." So they came back to the office with a big bag of hens and chicks, and she said, "What you guys need on that roof is some hens and chicks." So we went ahead and took the hens and chicks, and I threw them out onto the roof, and this is one location where it took hold and it's growing. So is this outcompeting this, or is this beginning to outcompete that? And actually, this location, I haven't seen it for quite a while, so I'm not sure what's what. But that's an interesting point, and it's a very, as it relates to the two different types of things that you might think about. If you're looking at an Ecoroof for its aesthetic value and what you're looking at in terms of your design and what you want to see grow or have, then definitely there's going to be issues with your understanding which plants are going to outcompete other plants. And then if you don't care about that, you're looking at, for instance, we're in the city of Portland, we have thousands of acres of industrial buildings that are flat, desolate, dead environments. We have thousands of acres in the city of Portland that are almost literally dead space, completely dead. So what we would like to see on those roofs, and we don't want to have industry have lots of expense that they can't handle. We want to see a roof that can live on its own and sustain itself so that those building owners would be a little bit more attracted to considering the idea, which right now we haven't met too many owners of those buildings that have said, yeah, I'm ready to put an Ecoroof on my building, because there aren't any out there that are of any size. There's a couple small ones. So anyway, so we've got that whole range of aesthetic and this thing that you want to have that looks a certain way, all the way to something that it doesn't matter what it looks like as long as it's self-sustaining and safe.
I just want to follow up on that, though. There are quite possibly plants that might be great because they cover the roof well, but they might escape that environment and end up all over the city as a nuisance, and then, you know, in sensitive environments. At the same time, we're trying to protect various kinds of stream situations.
Right, that's a very important question. And if you all didn't hear, he's talking about the issue of since we don't know all there is to know about these plants, and say, for instance, this one that is a problem in California, could this be a problem in our environment, as if it escapes from the roof environment or something like that and then gets into our native areas? Yeah, and that's something we want to try and look at. I'm not sure, and we BES have the invasive species program that is also part of our Gray to Green. So we're talking to the people in BES anyway about how they look at some of these plants. And it's kind of, it's a new area, so we're going to be trying to learn about that and see. So we'll see. So we don't have an answer to it except to study it and try and keep ahead of it so that if we see anything that appears bad. But the plants down in California are different species than this. They're still from South Africa or some other climate that may be a problem in our climate. And this is another one. This one is very small. It only grows about a couple inches in height on the Ecoroof, but it's another ice plant. This is one of our natives, and this is Camas. It's on a couple projects, and it's a really nice plant. It comes up every spring. It has nice leaves, and then the flower, as you can see, has this pretty flower. But it is, I'll call it summer deciduous. It flowers, it grows, and then by the end of spring, it's done its thing. It's kind of like, it's a bulb, and it's like a tulip or something like that, and then it just kind of, everything sort of disintegrates, and then you just have some brown leaves, and then the brown leaves eventually disintegrate, and by midsummer there's really nothing there. So this is what we're calling more like an accent plant. We have one location where this has been planted in a large area, and it's all this plant. It looks great in the spring, but then the rest of the year, about 9 months out of the year, it's just dirt that's on that, and then weeds get in it quite a bit. Yeah. Pardon me?
I thought it needed more depth than you would have on a roof like this.
She's saying she thought this plant would need more depth than it would have on an Ecoroof. I think, it's back to that concept of what we know in terms of gardening and landscaping doesn't always, the rules don't always necessarily apply to an Ecoroof. Or we find that the rule that we had might have been, it's just limited. And so, for instance, it's not one of our plants on our list, but I've had a tulip on my garage, and it's the only Ecoroof we know of that has a tulip in the city. So it didn't meet our criteria for evaluation, so we didn't put it in here. But that tulip is only growing, in 3 inches of soil on a garage that I very seldom water. So that seems to be not fitting with the rules of conventional gardening.